Hello everyone, welcome back to I Create For You. We're going to do another story in the Yellowstone Ghost Stories book. It's called The Vanishing Hitchhiker. Ghosts are known to return from beyond the grave to render help or deliver important messages. Stories describe these specters as protective spirits who watch over families and guide travelers. The familiar Vanishing Hitchhiker story tells of a mysterious young lady in distress. The legend originated around the turn of the century, somewhere east of the Mississippi River, and seems to resurrect each decade, updated to fit the era. In the 1930s, for example, the horse-drawn carriage was changed to the automobile. Each time as the story emerges and spreads throughout the country, it is modified to include familiar surroundings and local landmarks. Here is our version. On July 22, 1994, Mark Elliott was in the Albright Visitor Center at Mammoth Hot Springs when he heard a loud clap of thunder. He looked out the window just in time to see a cloudburst drench the sidewalk. Glancing at the clock, he realized it was late. Better head for the Lake Hotel now, he thought. Maybe I can still get there before dark. Mark dashed through the rain and jumped into his classic scarlet Mustang. Ooh, my favorite car, as long as it's a 65. He only had one more day in the park before he had to leave for home. He flipped on his headlights and settled back. He knew he had quite a drive, and he hoped the rain would lighten up. Mark couldn't believe it was so dark. It was only 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He remembered a conversation with a park ranger at Old Faithful. The ranger said they could have the most hard rainstorms in Yellowstone, and then an hour later it would clear up and be beautiful. He looked forward to that, but right now the rain was so thick he could hardly see in front of the car. He turned on his bright headlights and turned up his windshield wipers. The rain was fierce. Suddenly, out of nowhere, something was in front of his car. At first it appeared almost formless. Then Mark realized it was a person. Yes, a woman standing in the road. Mark slammed on his brakes, but it was too late. He must have hit her because she appeared too close, so suddenly. Mark closed his eyes, thinking, "Oh no, I've killed her." Mark stopped the car and got out. The woman was gone. Was it a dream? No, he saw her, and there was no way he could have avoided hitting her. Mark knelt down to inspect his car. There was no body underneath it, no dent in the front. No blood. As he got up, he practically stepped into a woman, the one that was nowhere in sight seconds ago. He felt a chill, perhaps from the rain, perhaps from the scare of the accident. With a far-off glance and a hollow smile, the woman asked for a ride. Still trying to compose himself, Mark assured her it was no place for a man or beast and agreed to give her a lift. Noticing the young lady was soaked, Mark opened the car door and grabbed his raincoat. He wrapped it around her and helped her into the car. Mark got in and started carefully down the road. The rain was not letting up. He traveled at a snail's pace while she sat beside him and stared out the window. Mark asked where he was headed. She was headed. She told him she was on her way to the Canyon Hotel, where she was a waitress. Mark glanced at her long, full skirt. He thought how clever it was for the hotel staff to wear clothes that were of the 1900s. He broke the silence by asking her name and how she came to be stranded so far from the hotel. She said her name was Victoria Venable and that she was an employee of the Yellowstone Park Hotel Company. She was from the Mammoth area and had been waiting for her ride to pick her up. When she realized that she'd been forgotten, she decided to start walking in hope that someone would notice her and give her a ride. Mark admitted that he had definitely noticed her, but suggested that the next time she stand on the side of the road and not in the middle. The young lady smiled weakly, coughed, and stared out the window. Mark was worried about her cough. He suggested she see a doctor. She thanked him for his concern, but said the cough was an old one. The rain turned to snow. At the summit of the road, the woman screamed, "Stop!" Mark slammed on the brakes just in time to miss three big-horned sheep that leaped across the road. He knew that if she had warned him, he would have plowed into the animals, or worse, the car would have gone off the road and killed them both. Swallowing his heart, he turned to Victoria and thanked her. She smiled. At Canyon Junction, Victoria directed Mark to the hotel. Music and laughter could be heard from inside. He asked if he could see her again. Victoria smiled and kissed him, then stepped out of the car, walked into the hotel, and disappeared into the crowd. As Mark drove away, he couldn't forget Victoria's sudden warning and the impossibly safe stop he made. How could she have known? No one could have seen those sheep in the blinding rain. She had saved their lives, and he was grateful. But more than that, he was intrigued. There was something about her. He had to see her again. By the time Mark reached Lake Hotel, he was both physically and emotionally drained. It had been an exhausting day. Entering the hotel, he noticed the beautiful period-style furniture, but the staff wore modern attire. Why didn't this staff wear the turn-of-the-century clothing like the staff at Canyon Hotel? He questioned the desk clerk, but she had no idea what he was talking about. A bellman took the luggage. Mark followed him to the elevator and asked how that they had weathered the storm. The bellman said it had been sunny all day. Entering his room, Mark looked out the window. Not a drop of water had fallen. Everything was dry. Mark was confused. He tried to sleep, but visions of Victoria kept creeping into his thoughts. The next morning, Mark felt good. He was going to find Victoria. His excuse was to see her was his raincoat. She still had it. At the front desk, Mark explained the situation and asked the clerk to check to see if there were any rooms available for that night at Canyon Hotel. The clerk looked puzzled. Another clerk overheard the conversation and explained there was no Canyon Hotel. It had burned down years ago. Mark bolted out the door, jumped in his car, and headed north to the hotel. He drove as fast as he could, but the traffic was slow and it seemed like hours before he reached the area. He wasn't sure exactly where the hotel stood, but he knew if he came to the Canyon Junction, he had gone too far. Suddenly there was the road to the hotel. He followed it up a slight hill, but at the end of the parking lot there was no hotel, just a few horses in a corral flanked by two very small buildings. Mark couldn't believe it. He got out of the car and ran to where the hotel had stood the night before. Where was it? How could it have disappeared? Searching for answers, Mark walked through the grass and found only broken blocks of cement belonging to the hotel's once grand mile-round foundation. Hurt and confused, Mark drove to Mammoth and found the Yellowstone Library. He asked for information about the hotel and was given a book and a few old magazines. They confirmed that what he had been told. The hotel had been sold for a mere $25 in 1959, and then it had mysteriously burned to the ground in 1960. The lump in his throat turned into a pound in his heart. If the hotel wasn't real, was the girl? And if she wasn't real, where was his coat? Mark left the library and walked across the street to a picnic table. He sat down to think. Gradually he realized he was sitting near a young woman, that she had an uncanny resemblance to Victoria. He stared at her. She was reading a book but kept glancing at him. Finally she asked if anything was wrong. Mark apologized for his rudeness. He told her the events of the past 24 hours and said she looked very much like Victoria. She smiled strangely and said, "Really? I was just reading about an employee whose name was Victoria who worked at the Canyon Hotel a long time ago." Mark looked at the book. It was Death in Yellowstone. The woman showed Mark the page where Victoria was listed as being buried in the Fort Yellowstone Army Cemetery. She had been a waitress at the Canyon Hotel, and she had died on July 22, 1914, 80 years ago to the day that Mark met her. Obtaining directions from the young lady, Mark drove to the old cemetery. It was a small gated enclosure. on a lazily sloping hill. As he got out of his car and approached, he noticed something draped over one of the headstones. It was his raincoat. Mort walked to the grave, picked up his raincoat, and read the name inscribed on the headstone, Victoria Venable. Immediately he heard a clap of thunder. Yes, he thought, it was almost time for her to go to work. He told Victoria goodbye, wished her peace, and left. Whew, that was a weird one. There was a lot of interaction with the ghost. Kind of strange and scary at the same time. Alrighty, let's see what I can come up with. I'm probably just going to do a hitchhiking ghost, no face or anything. Just make it simple since it was such a long, let's make sure I'm in frame here, a long story. That guy probably thought he was losing his mind. Oh, I do not like this. I'll do it on this side. That side was shiny and I wasn't able to draw on it. Okay. Actually, she was a hitchhiker, so I gotta make it a thumb, right? Oh, this is a sad, sad hand. Alright. Get her thumb out there. Yeah, that was 1994. That's pretty close to soon enough. I mean, that he experienced a ghost there. I wonder if that still happens. It's kind of weird. Like I said before, it seems like sometimes ghosts are trapped. Either they are trapped looking for something, not knowing that they're gone, and they're stuck in an eternal loop. But man, she was doing a lot. I mean, like, she's actually out there hitchhiking. She actually physically gets into a vehicle, has a conversation. Sheesh. It's a scary thought, you know. And then everybody's telling you different things that don't coincide with your story, so the guy probably thought he was coming down with something. Didn't really say what she died of. I wonder if she died in the fire. Because it didn't really say too much, except that she must have, though. I mean, like, I think that lady said there was a list of people, and she was on the list. It's just so strange. Now, would you pick up that hitchhiker? He's a little scary. He's got his thumb out, and he's going your way. Might as well open the door and let him in. Yeah, let him into your nightmares. Oh my goodness. Well, that's another story for our book. And it's a Friday, so I won't be able to be doing anything this weekend. It's a pretty big weekend for us. We've got the Hamburger Festival here in town, and I had to do a lot of work this week. It's going to be a long day tomorrow. So I shall see you. If I don't see you Sunday, I'll see you Monday. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Share, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you all in the next one. Bye bye for now.